this harvest. Haven't decided yet, but I need to get with you at some point. May not be today because I wanted to do a little ad and something that she said to me some JPEG 3. Well, I don't need 3 JPEG pictures. I wanted to just do a business card, but I'll show you what it is they have, and you can help me decide what's right.
Well, once that happens,
No, I know she's not a good help me out. She just knows a lot of people. Lauren knows a lot of people. I know because my youngest child was the same age as her eldest.
But
All right,
did
we're
I
good.
hear you say, Glenn, that's something you wanted to
Yes.
work?
So I'll touch on listings probably at the end because it'll make more sense. But probably listings, once you have a listing and you've inputted, got it in the MLS, it's really just a matter of sending that listing agreement and a worksheet. And well, actually, now that I said I'll wait to the end, I'll just do it now. So there's a listing information sheet, which is here. Do you all, so this is should be in the files upstairs and also in Dropbox. I don't know if it's in Transaction Desk, and that's actually something I was just talking to Mary about because one of the things that you kind of need to do is check Dropbox and Transaction Desk frequently because Mary and the other administrators will put documents in there, but they don't necessarily tell us. Sometimes we get an email that says, we've updated documents for 2020, so check those documents. That hasn't happened in a while, so, but when I was on Transaction Desk, I was preparing for this. I was like, oh, look, all these documents are actually already here. When I pull them off, I have them in my Word documents, and then I also pull them out of Dropbox. But I'm going to talk mostly today about when you have a ratified contract. What do you do with that? So you've gone through Transaction Desk, you struggled through Transaction Desk, you've got the contract written.
And just to back up for a second, because I'm an idiot. Transaction agent, I don't have my glasses on. That's on the car website. Is what I'm saying.
Thank you. Yeah. So feel free to stop me if I get ahead, and it's
Excuse me, I also say that if you get if you're not already, get Vincent to hook it with Dropbox because all the forms are in Dropbox as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can pull off the form in Dropbox without getting into Transaction Desk.
Right.
Dropbox is internal. Transaction Desk is on the car dash.
Well, yes, and Roy Wheeler has them in both places.
But just a simplistic way.
Right. So to get to Transaction Desk, you go to your car page, and then there's various ways you can get to it from there. You can click on Transaction Desk, and then this is going to my Transaction Desk. And I have created an AHA demo. So this is my, for this transaction. So pretending that I have a contract, I'm actually am using a contract that was a real contract. And let me go back here.
So, can you just start it with even sooner? Somebody wants, you have a buyer, you get into Transaction Desk to complete the contract.
So yeah, so I thought this might come up. So and I guess we'll do that quickly, because that could be a whole other class.
Yeah, just 2 seconds on that.
Yeah, so and I will make actually a good point on that in order to do that. So you're going to write a contract. You go to your Transaction Desk. create a transaction. And actually, let me pull up a, we'll just use something that's come on the market because there's an autofill option, which is pretty important that you use. And I actually had a contract, the reason why I bring that up, because we had a contract just recently that I'm working on, and I don't think they used the person who wrote the contract didn't use the autofill. So for the most part, it was fine, except for the zip code was incorrect in the address. So we had to go back and fix all that, because for the lender, everything needs to be, it doesn't seem like a big deal that it was 902, 22903 when it's supposed to be 902. Not a big deal, but to the lender, that is a big deal. So, so let's see. We'll just do whatever's the first one here. 3840 Monacan Trail. So if we go to transaction desk and we're going to write a contract on this property. Here's my dashboard. So what I do is I use the address. Monacan Trail, I'm not spelling it right. 3042 Monacan Trail, is that what I had?
Oh, we're all here. Even the old timers need some help once in a while.
So I use the address and I use the client name. It's a residential sale. And this is where I'm going to import data. And I'm going to select the source. This is the important piece from the Charlottesville MLS. And then I got to go back and look at get the number. 59941. Add me as,
I can't see.
so this other add me, so I can say I'm the listing agent, the selling agent, whatever I am, or neither.
Is that you, neither?
Yeah, so I'll do that if I want to be, like if I'm setting up contracts for Keith and Yona, I'll add me as a neither, because I'm not the listing agent, I'm not the selling agent, but I still want to be involved in the transaction, so I'll CC me on any signings or whatever, so I get that. So I would do that. So you can see here now that this pulls from the CRS tax data. So this will autofill your contract.
It's a
With,
beautiful thing.
yeah. Yeah. So then you go through, I don't even do, you can conceivably fill out all of this and manage it directly on transaction desk. I don't do that. I do, I manage all my paperwork in Google Docs and Google Calendar. And I do that basically because I'm sharing with you all. When I work with Keith and Yona, I'm sharing documents with them. So I want them to have access to it. If I just do it in transaction desk, only I have access to it.
Do you use Folio?
No.
So even if you have yourself as a neither, you wouldn't have access, I mean, like you were talking about?
So, well, no, so what so in signings, so here I am. Here's where the people of the transaction are. So this is pulled from the MLS and what I told it. So I said to add me as a selling agent.
Yes.
Roy Wheeler's the broker. Sharon and William Cook are the listing agents. So the next thing I would want to do here, so I would want to, if I'm, I would want to add my buyer. So I would go to this little plus sign. just so you can add an existing contact out of your contacts. So just for ease purposes, I'll do that. Let's see.
So you're representing
We'll add,
the seller side.
I just did seller side here.
Okay,
Yeah.
this scenario.
So here's my buyer, Anna Adams. So I'm going to add her to the transaction. And so there pops up, and I can add more information. If I need to, I can add her phone number, what have you. So we'll save that. And you can add as many people to this transaction as you want.
Just gotta make sure you save it, because I'll put them in, and then if I don't hit the save button at the top.
Well, it's at the bottom, actually.
Okay.
But you need to, if you keep going through, so you get to forms. So here's where in forms, what form do you want to add here? So you need your contract, right? If you go into the search button, you can scroll down, but it'll
So it doesn't prompt you, you have to think about what documents you need? and type
well,
it
you
in?
can set it up. So this is where having a separate transaction desk. I don't want to get too bogged down in that, because it is you can set up a template. So, okay, I've got my seller template. When I'm representing a seller, these are the documents that I need. And you can just click that in, and it'll automatically put that in. So, like, you need your, that document, then you need the home inspection.
So now you're doing it like you're a buyer, or you're still doing it like you're a listing?
When they submit this to you.
I'm the selling agent.
You're still the selling agent.
Selling, and this is confusing. Selling agent is representing the buyer. Listing.
They use listing and selling.
Listing agent, that's confusing.
We need to change that in the administrative.
Yeah, that is so bad.
We're
You're
so-
so
Yeah, it's
bad.
buyer side.
It's just like listing agent, buyer agent.
You're the buyer side.
Yeah,
That's
so
fine.
selling agent is the buyer. So no, that's a good, yeah, that's
So
a,
when she looks like she's putting up the documents, she's representing.
all right, so I've added, so you would want to put your home inspection contingency in there as well. I guess we'll do that just for. You can go to just the VAR forms. They have them, see how they're numbered 600, 600. So they're in numerical order. So these forms tend to be at the very bottom. So if you kind of know the name of the form that you're looking for, if you just put it in your search button, it'll pull it up for you and save you scrolling down. So, all right, so those, we'll just use those, say that's the only two documents we need for this transaction. We'll go to next. Documents would be, now, so one of the documents, if you look at your list, and this is required, there are forms that are required by Roy Wheeler, and there are forms that are required by law. So one of them is the disclosure, the property disclosure. Where you find, and that is the responsibility of the listing agent to provide that to you. So it should be on the MLS. So if you go to your MLS sheet back on Paragon, and there's this little button here is actually a D for documents. It should be there. And always when you're trying to remember, I forget, and I always have to like, oh darn, I forgot to go check documents. So I have to go back to this. But this is a really good place to check because listing agents, especially the ones that are really organized and really good, they'll put a lot of information there about the property. They could put surveys there. Yep, there's a survey here.
Do you ever just provide if you're on the buyer side, just go ahead and put the disclosure in the contract so in case they.
Yes, you should.
have it.
Yes, no, it should be, it should be there. And in this case, the listing agent has provided a survey. So I'm downloading this form here.
Oh, I see what you mean. So they provide it on the site, but you need to put it in the contract.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And great, they've provided a survey. So that's a question I don't need to ask the listing agent. It's already there.
With the disclosure, property disclosure, there are a couple other pages that sometimes I can find and sometimes I can't.
What is it, a rights, but I don't think you need, you just need the sign sheet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are documents. And this is where transaction desk, it's a little confusing. Is it a document? Is it a form? But we need those documents. We want those two documents, the survey and that form, to be part of our contract.
So a document is signed, right? A form is not. So isn't that how it works? A form is unsigned document.
Yeah. Yes. So once you process the form, it becomes a document.
Oh, okay, so I have that. Or did I?
No,
Am I
you're
right?
right.
Okay.
No, you had it right. Let's see. Let me get back to my find the right link. Oh, here we go. So now I'm going to add documents. Oh, is it okay?
Yeah, no one can see this.
Oh,
Even we need extension cords to bring you closer to the table. It's hard to read.
Do you want to bring the screen closer to us?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
maybe we can move it
I
forward.
don't know if the cords are long or not.
Oh,
Perhaps
Yeah, we
can't
can't
see it.
See the black bars.
We
And we
have
even have glasses on.
Bring your chair close.
No,
You bring all the
push whole
desks.
table, that's fine. I'm good with that.
We can't read it. Is that what's going on?
It's
Yeah.
just, yeah,
It's a little
it's little writing on. You may not have enough cord.
Is that better?
Yeah,
That
it
is
is, that's
better.
great. Increase it. It is, we get it on monitor over here, running
Is
the
that-
Thank you, Vanessa.
coffee
Good.
maker here and everything, we're ready to go. Thank you.
this is small, this is tiny.
oh well, hold on, because I'm just downloading documents. So to put into hi. All right, go back to where my transaction. Here we go. Here's my transaction. And then I'm going to add the MLS shop.
And one thing, if I may, while you're doing
Okay.
that, interject that I learned from Keith and Justine both, when you start getting these forms, as you get them, put them on your desktop so that when you go to put all of them together to send to the other side, they're all in one place. And man, does that make a difference.
Yeah.
Of course, you have.
And yeah, and so labeling them is important. So here I just downloaded the form. So I probably want to know what this form is. So if I go up here to one of these, properties and rename. So I'll put, so then that way I make sure that I have all my forms.
And you title it the name of the last name of the buyer.
Address.
Yeah, so in everything that I do, and I'm just to expedite things, I'm not doing it in this situation, but I usually do the address, and I've started including the name. So I do the address, either like the name of the client / address or address, I just include both of them, especially when I send emails, because if for some reason I need to go back and search something, and, you know, somebody says, we don't have the disclosure for this property, I can go to my email and name, address, you know, disclosure, and up it comes. Oh, well, I sent it to you 3 weeks ago. You know, here it is again. So I try to be really efficient about that. And I also try not to, so if there's an email going around about the home inspection, I don't then add another discussion to that email chain, because then I can lose the, you know, whatever that question was. I'll start a new chain or something. So it means more emails going around, but for organizational purposes, it's just a lot easier. So we'll get into that. All right, so I've got my documents in here. I've got my forms. I'm done. So then I want to go and I'm going to have the client sign it, right? So I'm going to go. I'm going to start. I'm going to pull up the contract. And there it's auto-filled. So you need to put in the date. So this contract purchase date is the day that you write the contract. So it's February 11th. Going forward, when you fill out other subsequent documents, they'll say to you, you know, referencing back to the contract date. This is the date they're referring to. The ratification date is a different date. Most of the time, not all, sometimes it's the same date. If you're lucky, that would be nice. And that ratification date is used in different ways. So there's 2 different dates, but the contract date is what's at the top of the contract. So then you fill out the name of your seller, which you get off of the it should be on the MLS sheet. If it's not on the MLS sheet, you want to check the county records. So this one says Black Bear Hills LLC. That's probably correct, but you should cross-reference it with the county records, because sometimes the listing agent hasn't, and they think that Susie Smith is the owner of the property, but it's really Black Bear Hills LLC. So you want to make sure you get that information right. You can also confirm with the listing agent. Yes, Keith?
You should go up of that thing. It's helpful to let them know that you can click on the little yellow button, which takes them all to the tax record. You need to know what that is.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's good. No, it's good. I'm trying not to spend too much time in transaction desk, because that's another.
Got it. I wasn't sure what we were doing today.
Yeah. So, but trying to go through the process so you can see it. And
I'll sit here and show.
no, it's good. All right. So, so this auto fills. If there's personal property, you would fill that out. There's the price. You know, what's $275. So you don't have to write out $275,000. It'll do that for you. Your lending information, you know, click on that. Other financing terms, if you wanted to, you know, talk about the appraisal, or, you know, it has to appraise at or above asking price, you can add that there. Deposit, again, you don't have to write it all out. Oops. Or maybe you do on this one. Loan commitment, you can just click on the calendar. and it fills it in for you. Settlement. I'll do there.
While you this, when you and I worked together, Justine, I had done this contract and then I handed it to you. So in this scenario, you're actually writing it, and so is Keith is, for instance, telling you what the offer is gonna be, what the deposit's gonna be.
So, okay, so I'm just doing this so you guys can see kind of how you get through transaction desk and fill out a contract. Sometimes Keith will call me from his car and say,
Hold it. I feel like I'm gonna get thrown under the bus.
no, it like, I'm on the road, I'm showing properties, I'm doing this meeting, I'm going here. We want to write a contract on this. Could you get it started for me? Could you set it up? So I have the ability to go into his transaction desk and start a contract. So I would do this for him. I would set up the transaction, put in the name of the client, pull the tax status. So when he gets back to his computer, he can just do the final details. Yeah, I don't typically do all this.
I very rarely do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's happened maybe twice in 3 years I've done that. So this is not typically part of what I do. We're just doing this so you guys can see the autofill. That autofill piece is important, and I think condominium disclosure, and I'm just scrolling through quickly just so we can get to what happens once you get the ratified contract. So it's not a condominium, but let's say we do need property owners disclosure. Then you go down. Yeah, so all right, so you got that, let's say your contract's all filled out, and we're going to create a signing with that contract. And quickly, there's a difference between sign in line and simul sign. So sometimes I'll do, like if I do an amendment and I write it up and I'm like, gee, I don't know if I did the wording right here. I want Keith to look at it first before I send it to the client. I will do simul sign and I will send it to Keith first as a reviewer, and he'll click on it and look at it. And if he says it's good, he'll okay it, and then it'll go directly to the client.
Can I ask, so one thing that I wasn't sure how to do, I know Michael can just go in and look whenever he wants, right, on all of our contracts in there, but how do we invite him without getting him to sign? Because I think he can go on the transaction desk and just look.
Yes, you can, but.
So I was wondering how to just like,
So,
before I was sending it, just get him to look at it, like.
Okay, so well, we'll show you how to do that in a minute.
So what would you prefer us to do? Not simul sign or regular?
It depends. Usually I do not do sign in line, I do simul sign.
First come, first served.
Which is just basically, yeah, everybody can sign when they get there. So if there's a specific reason why I do sign in line, usually it's I want somebody to review it before I send it off to a client.
So it's sign in line is the review, or sign to sign?
Sign in line.
Well, so wouldn't you want to do sign in line if you're sending it to your buyer to sign, and then it's going to go to the listing agent? Like that's.
You can do it. Yes, you can do that. Yes, Keith?
I apologize. Is this a client care coordination class or transaction class?
It's supposed to be client care. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was talking to Michael, I'm going to do a separate class just
on transaction desk. Okay, so that's what I said at the beginning. I don't want to get too bogged down in transaction desk.
I don't want to stop you what you want to do, but
yeah. So, all right. So we're going to do simul line. So if I want to add, I can add somebody there to the signing documents. Why am I? So it's not letting me go forward because I just didn't designate a signer. So I'm just going to put myself in as the remote signer. But here you would have your client information because you're sending it to them to sign. This, I never deal with this. I just go by that. There might be a reason to do that. I just haven't delved into it enough to do that. Then I'm going to design my document. And this is basically just where I would put my signers in. And actually, to go back, I would actually add other documents. I would add the home inspection document to the signing. I would add the disclosure. So that they're all in one place. So because I've added the documents to the transaction, I'm going here. And then I just click on which, there's my, oops, I already got that one in there. There's the home inspection contingency, and then those two documents. And then they'll show up on here. All right, and then I go to design, and then that's where I plug in the signatures.
Do you have both sides sign that document? Or do you just give it to them?
Which document?
Oh, so now
I'm sending this to my client.
to the buyer.
Right, because
Right,
we're
to
going to
the
put an
buyer,
offer in.
And then you're going to forward it for the seller side to sign through Authentisign as well, or you send it completed, signed by the buyer?
Personally, I would do, you can do it either way.
Right.
Personally, I would have my buyer sign it. I would download the package and then I would email it
That's it.
because I want to make sure, I want to review it again before I send it off. So drag and drop, sign here, and you go through and you do. So there are all the documents that need to be signed. So that's very quickly how you get it through transaction desk and send it off to be signed. So what do you do, which is really, so once you get all this back and you have a signed contract, a ratified contract, then what do you do? So let me go back to my.
And who has to sign that? Basically the lender, the buyer, who's signing that? Just
So you're sending it to your client.
Right.
And because you're going to put an offer in, right? We're representing the buyer.
Right.
We're going to put an offer in. So you write up the details of the contract and you have your client sign it.
Okay.
So when you get all those documents back and they've signed and you review, then you send it to the listing agent.
You
And here's
your lender letter to all those documents, right?
Yes, yes. So what
And then you send it to them. You don't sign anything.
You wouldn't necessarily have to. It just. it
No,
increases the
he's
value
not-
of the contract. if you
the
have a
the
lender
pre-qual,
there,
the
but
pre-qual
you
letter.
might have,
Okay,
time is of the essence.
you probably already have that.
You want your pre-qual, we didn't do it in this particular case, but you want to have a pre-qual letter and you want to include that with your offer. So you can download that into Transaction Desk, into your documents, and include that. So I'm pulling up a contract. This is actually a real contract that we used, and I crossed out the client's names. And so this was an actual that we used. So Keith wrote up this contract. So that's the contract. So this is what it looked like when it came out of Transaction Desk. Keith had this whole package together in this Transaction Desk. The contract. We didn't do the ratified date. So there's the home inspection contingency that's filled out. It's 15 days from contract ratification. 5 days to review, 3 days. Everybody agreed to that. There's a copy of the check, the EMD. A lot of times, depending on your client, you know, you have, and it says in your, up in the first page of the contract, you know, how many days the client has to get the EMD. This client was really Johnny on the spot and was like, here's the check. So we actually had the check, but sometimes they put it in the mail if they're from, you know, if they're not local. Here's the pre-approval letter. So we were able to present that to the seller. We like to include the MLS sheet because there's a lot of information in the MLS sheet. And so we just want to make sure that everybody agrees that this is actually the property that we're talking about. So what's missing from this contract package was the disclosure. And so I had to go back and pull the disclosure. And sometimes if the listing agent forgets to put it on the MLS, then I just need to ask for it. Because that is a required document by law, not by Roy Wheeler, but by law. We need to have this disclosure.
Did your brain tell you you were missing that, or you got a prompt that said you were missing?
So if you look at the, well, actually that's not on the checklist. So sometimes this is because this is a standard document. I think actually in this case I did miss it. And somebody prompted me and said, we need the disclosure. I was like, oh darn. Okay, so then when I get that, my first thing is to go to the MLS and check that documents form and see if it's there. If it's not there, then I need to ask the listing agent for it because this is a document that the listing agent generates. Back to my file. Here we go. Nope.
There have been times where my client's pre-approval letter with a figure that the lender gave them isn't quite the same. And we've let the other agent know that we can get that to them that next day. Does that happen sometimes? So that they're not.
So if it's more, if the purchase price is more than what they're
Yeah,
approval letter.
if it's more, or.
Yeah, I mean, you can just say, look,
they're qualified for a whole lot more.
Look, my
You don't
client
want
is
them-
pre-qualified for X amount. We realize that this offer is a different parameter. We're working with a lender. They said it's okay, and they'll generate another letter, and we'll get that to you as soon as we have it. I think it's, you know, you just need to communicate that to the other side. That's providing the pre-qual letter is not a, you don't have to do that. It's just good practice because especially in a hot market, if they're looking at 2 different offers and you got one with a pre-qual letter that says you're qualified and one that's not, you know, hey, I'm going to go with the pre-qual. And maybe,
All cash versus.
uh-oh, sorry. Yeah, and maybe,
Sometimes they're qualified for a lot more, but you don't really want to.
yeah, no, you don't want to let them know that. So, all right, so, so you have your ratified contract. You've agreed on everything. So what's next? What do you do with all this paperwork? So that's when you get your checklist out. For a long time, I kept this in my binder and sort of up front. So I made sure, I've kind of moved it to the back now. So, Roy Wheeler has certain things that you need to hand in. Some of them are, they want internally, like the contract disbursement sheet. So what is the contract disbursement sheet? That's a really important document. And it looks like this. And I took the liberty of filling this one out. So we could see kind of what this is. So it's a Roy Wheeler sale. The agent is Keith Smith. Now this document you can find in Dropbox, and you can also find it in Transaction Desk. And so I fill this out in transaction desk. So it's, it's an autofill, or not an autofill, but you can type right in there.
And excuse me, and Roy Wheeler's documents.
Yes, yeah.
Not to be confused with another disbursement.
Okay, we're just going to talk about this document right now.
Right.
So the contract disbursement has all the details, the important details of the contract. This goes to Mary and it goes to Ann. So when your commission check comes in, Ann pulls this document out and says, okay, what does my agent get paid here? So it's got the address, it's got the MLS sheet, it's got seller's name, Susie Seller. Address, seller's attorney, we didn't know who the seller's attorney was, so we just put to be determined. Because we're actually representing the buyer, that's really not, we don't really need that information. So if you don't have that, which you probably wouldn't, because sometimes they put it in the contract, sometimes they don't.
So that's the sound of the company, what they need, right? Basically, usually, unless it is an actual attorney.
I'm sorry, I
For
didn't.
the attorney.
This does not go to the attorney. This
No,
is
I know,
it.
so, but that is basically like if it's.
Yeah, so you definitely want to, at some point, you want to find out who the seller's attorney is. So if your client, let's see, our client here is using Tim Kelsey, then Tim's going to say, who's the other side using at some point? I need to touch base with them. So at some point, you need to ask and find out. And that is part of this worksheet, the other document that I handed out to you. So I actually go through when I get the contract. I fill out this form by hand because for me personally, it helps me to just sort of ingrain the information. So there's that top section that has bold, and then the first checklist there says submit contract to Roy Wheeler. Not just the contract, it should say contract and contract disbursement sheet. But in my mind, I know when I'm submitting the contract, I need to get this contract disbursement sheet to them. So I've got the contract price. Contract was $419. The contract date, remember that's that first date on the top of the contract, not the ratification date. And the projected close date. So how do I know what my commission is? I mean, my commission is, how do I know that I'm getting 3%? It's somebody else's listing. How do I find that out?
It says on the contract.
Says on the.
On the MLS
Yeah,
sheet.
Yes.
On the MLS sheet. So usually it's 3%, but you want to, let's see, do I have one that's handy? Yeah. So down here, oh, see, it is not. It's 2.5 on this, on our test one. So if we were writing a contract commission sheet here, we would need to change that for this property to 2.5. So you do want to double check that.
Not to complicate it, but unless you have a buyer broker agreement with the client that says you will be paid 3%, then somebody else is coming up with that 0.5%.
Right.
So you need to know what you're doing before you submit it. So,
yeah.
What your structure is.
And you can always call and ask them, right?
Yeah, I mean, totally. Michael teaches a great class about that.
So for this sample contract that I had, that was the different one that I had set up for you, the commission was 3%. So, so I checked off 3% there, or a dollar amount. Sometimes there is like for example, if it's a foreclosure, banks sometimes say, we will pay selling agent $3,000, you know, or whatever it is. So in that case, if it was, you would just click on dollar amount and then enter the dollar amount. But for the most part, it's 3%. So 3% of the contract price there, we did the math. And that's a little over $12,000. If you've had a referral in this example, I didn't use a referral, but Mary wanted me to make sure. If somebody has like another agent, say Keith has said, you know, Logan, I don't have time for this client. Well, you would you take this client and I'd like a 25% referral fee. So you would note that here, referral fee paid not to an outside company, but to another agent. You would just, it's the same, 25%, Keith Smith.
Excuse me, would it be the opposite too? Now, somebody referred Keith to this client. You put that referral fee in there? So maybe the
Yes.
Board Wheeler
Yes.
gave.
So if Susie Realtor referred it to Keith,
Right, okay.
then you would say 25% to Susie Realtor, and her address is Boston, Massachusetts. You know, send her a check. Then Ann knows that that needs to happen. So you want to make sure that you put all that information. Or even if you don't have all that information, if you know it's a referral, but you don't have the other person's address or whatever, just say, yes, there's a referral, it's 25%. And then when the commission check comes in, Ann can say, hey, you know, who am I sending this referral fee to? But give them something, because it's really hard once they've dispersed the commissions. It's really hard to go back. You know, it's a pain in the neck. So you want to make sure they have all that information up front. Roy Wheeler charges his 4% advertising fund on every transaction. So if it's a listing or a sale, they take out that 4%, and that pays for the, you know, advertising that they do here. So then you have your net amount. If you do not know what your commission split is, you can ask Mary. Depending on how busy, you know, you started a certain way, and if you get busy and you sell a certain amount, your commission split can change. And if you're really busy and you don't know, like, check with Mary and say, gee, what am I got? Where am I at? And so I just plugged in 65% here.
And that rate changed in what, middle of April, April 15th?
Yes, so that's when, that's the fiscal year for, I don't know if fiscal year is the correct term, but that's when, yeah, that April date. So this bottom piece tells, okay, the agent gets, you know, 7,843, and Roy Wheeler is getting 4,200, you know, of this particular sale. So that's your contract disbursement sheet. So, so you got your contract, and you got your contract disbursement sheet, and you send that to Mary. Earnest money deposit, if you have a check. There's also, so we used to have to get social security number, copy of the check, and the client's birth date, which was really hard because people don't like to give all that information out. So there's actually now, people are still doing the check. That's sort of, but you don't have to, clients do not have to give copies of the check. Lender is going to want that, so, but they could do that directly with the lender. There is a, darn, I thought I had downloaded it. There's actually a form, a Roy Wheeler form, or it's actually not a Roy Wheeler form, it's a Virginia VAR form in place of the check, which just is, you know, I've received the EMD, whatever.
And the reason why we had to get all that other information was because we actually used to have to open up a checking account in their name.
Right, the banks required that information, so they've been able to set that up differently. For the most part, people are still getting copies of the check because the lender needs it and the closing agents like to have it. So that's still pretty much standard, although it's if your client says, no, I really don't want to have a copy of my check out there, you can just do this other form that verifies that we've actually received the check. Okay, so
Once you turn in the contract. The check you turn in, it always goes.
to Mary.
To Mary, yeah.
Yes, so this is just internally. You're just sending this to Mary now. We're talking about what Roy Wheeler needs. So the other documents that Roy Wheeler likes, and I just had a kind of discussion with Mary on this. What time is it? I'm not even sure.
10:23.
Okay. Ednum title disclosure. So this is the form. So in our example, in this contract, Tim Kelsey is our closing agent. So he is on our closing agent selection. This is a really good form to use if you have a client and you say, look, here are some people that we recommend locally as closing agents. We often say, you know, I use Tucker Griffin Barnes, Bill Tucker a lot. So I'll say, we have a really great relationship with Bill Tucker, but all of these people are great. You know, usually if they're, especially if they're from out of town, they don't know, and they're like, okay, Bill Tucker is great, we'll use Bill Tucker. And, but this is just a nice list of some of the local people.
And if they choose not to have an attorney, Charlottesville Settlement does the closing.
Right, Charlottesville Settlement's on there, as is some of the other settlement companies. So, so they can check on that. And then this is the Ednum title form, and this is the disclosure that says we have a relationship with Ednum title. And so my discussion with Mary was, you know, Mary wants this document with the contract and with the contract disbursement sheet. And my feedback to her was it's really overwhelming to the clients to present them with this packet of paper, and really it flows better to get your ratified contract, get the contract disbursement sheet, get that into Mary and say, okay, client, now that we've gotten through that, congratulations, this is wonderful, we're moving forward. Now our next steps are, let's talk about closing agents. So we need somebody to represent it. And then I would present them with this document.
So what would you put in the contract? Would you put to be determined there?
Yes, in the contract disbursement sheet. Yeah.
No, I mean an actual contract. In like because don't you need to put the disclosure company in the contract?
No, you just put
Yeah. Or to be D. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So
Quick
yeah.
question. I've found in my limited experience that oftentimes the closing lawyer is the one that kind of chooses the title company. In other words,
Well, and so that's where
mixed
they're more experts on the title work. You know, they do the title work. So it's a little bit awkward putting it on us to discuss the title information. So it's just saying, look, we have a relationship with the Ednum title. They can do it with Ednum title. You get a great discount if you use Ednum title, but talk to your closing agent that you choose about other options and have them make quotes for you. Because Ednum title is not the only one. We're just letting you know that we have a relationship with that company.
Because I've almost found it not even be a point of discussion. It's just the lawyer goes, this is.
Right. Well, and that's the point of the of that disclosure and why it's important that we get it, so that clients don't feel like they've just been sort of ramrodded into that decision. But so if you just refer it kind of back to the closing agent and say talk to them. So this is the other document that Roy Wheeler would like for us to have in file, is the how we do business. And this, you know, this talks about how we get paid and that type of thing. And that might, you know, again, I think some of these may not be, you know, you may actually, when you get, you want to just make sure that Roy Wheeler gets that at some point. It doesn't need to be, like, once you get the contract, a ratified contract, you want to get that into Mary as soon as possible. Hopefully you've already had your client sign that how we do business document. Like that should have probably, that discussion probably should have happened earlier before you started showing them houses. So that you're not, you know, it's kind of think about how you're pacing the paperwork, because it is a lot of paperwork and it's stressful and it's overwhelming. Barb, you alluded to the other document that can be confusing, which is often confused. I pulled it up. Is the commission disbursement sheet. So Mary just told me she wants this document in the initial round of paperwork. I usually do this towards the end as we're getting through the contract, and it sort of depends on each transaction. This is the document that goes to the closing agents. And it should also come to Mary as well. So, so I would put my date on here, you know, today's date. To Tim Kelsey, I'm going to do it quickly because we're running out of time.
Did you
From
make
me.
this, or is
This is a Roy Wheeler document. This is, it's in
Dropbox and a Word Wheeler.
Yeah.
So that's whether you are the buyer's agent or the
So what used to happen was the listing agent, because the seller closing agent is the one that disperses typically disperses the commissions. So this used to just go to, it would be the listings agent responsibility to fill out the commission disbursement sheet and get it to their closing agent. What's happened is that, and some agents are like, we don't do a commission disbursement. It's 3%, everybody knows it. But it's actually more complicated than that, because a lot of agents will say, you know what, I want to pay my client's home warranty out of my commission. So the closing agent needs to know that. So this would be somewhere that you would put that. And you could say, so let's say the selling commission, I can't remember the exact documents or the exact number, say the commission was going to be $12,000. Please pay attached home warranty invoice.
So the reason you want to do that is this way you're not paying additional for it, right? So it gets deducted prior to the commission being dispersed. If you pay it after the commission is being dispersed, you're paying whatever your split is more. Does that make
you
sense?
feel it too?
Yeah.
You feel it in your pocketbook.
Well, in theory also, it's on your W-2, right? So you're getting taxed on an expense.
You get hit.
Yeah.
Right.
So now and sometimes, a lot of times these things kind of happen at the end of the transaction. Like, so, which is why I don't, you know, I kind of wait until we're getting towards the end to fill this out. But Mary is saying that she would like this early on. So just know that she would like the contract disbursement sheet and the commission disbursement sheet. So, and she will make changes on, like, so this you know, if you were to send both these documents on there, and she would make the change on the contract disbursement sheet. You don't need to go back and edit it. She's like, oh, okay, this person's gonna pay for the home warranty. There's attached invoice, apparently. So sometimes you know, I'll put the exact amount, states, please pay $685, the attached home warranty or whatever. Also note on here, who's got the escrow? If it's being held at Tim Kelsey's office, because he's the closing agent on this one. And it was $10,000. Then we know where that $10,000 is. We don't have to search for it.
When you're wrapped up, just give me one.
Okay. So this mail commission to, this is pretty important. So some agents like to actually go pick up their commission checks so that they don't get lost in the mail. And they will have the, Tim, you know, let me know when the check's ready to be picked up. You know, and pretty quickly they'll say your check is up front and you can go get it and bring it to Ann and you don't have to worry about the mail.
It might take an extra day, so don't count your turkey before you
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what time of the day you closed and what day of the week. If you closed at 4 o'clock on Friday, you're probably not getting your commission check on Friday. Or if you've changed offices and you are now working up in Greene County, but well, it always comes back to Ann anyway, so that's probably not a great example, but it'll, when your contract autofills, your broker and your address are in the bottom of that. Now, I was thinking of that because I was thinking about Julie, whether they've actually changed her address because it might still have her at the downtown office. So the closing agent will take whatever it says on the contract and that's where they're gonna mail, unless you tell them differently. That's where they're gonna mail the check. So if they mail Julie's check to the downtown office because it hasn't been changed at Carr, then it's sitting in the mailbox there and Ann's not gonna get it.
So could you just, we just put, please notify agent to pick up?
Yeah, or mail to Roy Wheeler or Ednam.
Another thing, on our end, if you do pick it up, the timeline for Ann is if you can get that to her by noon, and I'm in the middle of this right now, so by noon, then you probably will get your check late afternoon.
Yeah, Ann's very, very good about turning it around. She understands that you guys need your commission checks. So the sooner she gets the check, the sooner she gets
So
it.
it looks like both sides are not signing it. I haven't looked at the complete bottom of the sheet, but the ones that I've done.
So, sorry. Yeah, there's a signing spot for both. Yeah, but so so how it's changed a little bit, closing agents on both sides are wanting this now. And don't, just be proactive and do your own commission disbursement sheet, even if you don't get the other side to sign it. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes I send this off and I'd say, like, I asked the other side to sign it. They haven't signed. This is the information I have.
Besides the gross commission part of it going to the other firm, why is it any of their business what your split is?
The split is
Internal.
not-
The split's not in
not
here.
on this one.
This is not the
It
split.
says
Total commission.
total commission. What was the other one that you were?
The contract, there's a contract disbursement sheet, and that's where it has the split. And that stays internal.
Okay.
This is the commission disbursement sheet. This goes to the closing agents
Okay,
and
you
to Mary.
switched, you had the other one up just previously, right, where you had Kelsey's name and all that? That was you were just looking at that?
That's more internal.
Yeah,
This one goes all.
right, I didn't see that she had switched pages. Sorry.
That's right. So contract disbursement sheet, commission disbursement sheet. They're two different.
Gotcha.
It's all about the money, where it's going.
Right.
If you have a question as to whether Mary should get a document, she probably just send it to her. It should go in the file. Closing agents are okay. the one documents that you really don't want to send around is anything having to do with the home inspection. Because if the lender gets a hold of that, that could cause problems for your transaction. The lender does not want to know that the house has a lot of window issues and that, you know, there's going to be a big, you know, $20,000 in window repairs or whatever. They don't want to know that.
Speaking of the lender though, right after we get everything ratified, it's our responsibility, isn't it, to get it to their lender?
Yeah, to make sure that the lender has it, yeah. So the closing agent and the lender, and that, so if you have this checklist, we go down the checklist and that has all the people that need the document.
You get an extra one of those, Julie, with fantastic form.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, because you came in.
Oh, okay, here it is.
Yeah. Okay, so Keith wanted to.
Yeah.
So I think you need an extra sheet.
Oh. There you go. Sorry. Thanks.
So I'm gonna do a sales pitch for Justine because she won't do it. But the owner and I think we did this, what, 3 years ago? We started this?
Yep.
3 years ago. So Michael asked us to do this. We created this program. Justine has this client care coordination program. It is literally, of all the money that we spend on a transaction, the best money you'll ever spend, because we can then focus on what we need to focus on, right? Is our clients and sales and listing, and then, you know, Justine is running this stuff pretty seamlessly. It's, you know, as far as return on investment, it's about the most direct money you would ever spend, because you just need to not necessarily forget about it, but you know that it's moving on a certain path. So I just want to make a bit of a pitch for using our services. It doesn't matter if you're just doing one transaction or 60 transactions. It's really an awesome service to use. And I will say a lot of our increased sales or business is because of using this, because we can then focus on what we need to do. So I just wanted to get that out there. I know you're not, wouldn't toot your own horn, so I want to do it for you. We are very lucky to have her at the company. And I would encourage you to use the heck out of her. And for transaction desk, Michael and I are working on a couple of 2-day sessions on them. But anyway,
Second that.
So Justine, do we call
Thank
you? Do we email you? What do
Yeah,
you have?
so-
Like, let's say we have a ratified contract, and we're like, oh, I want to use just.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly concur with what Keith just said about Justine and what she does for us. She's amazing. She's amazing.
I didn't know he was watching.
Yes, you did.
And I can vouch for that on the other side,
And
because
you guys are all gonna be entered in for a drawing for basketball tickets for tonight's game.
Thanks, guys. Use Justine.
Bye. Yeah, and if you get like your first contract and you want, like, what do I do with it? I'm happy to, like, I don't have to take it completely over. I can help you walk through it and figure the pieces out. So however you want to use me as far as that goes. But yes, you can call me.
Cell phone or email, or how, you know, and how much time, how much lead time do we give you to use you, so. You call me, you email me. Yeah, I mean, if you're in processing the contract, if you give me a little heads up, like I'm in negotiations, that would be great. Okay.
But sometimes it happens quickly. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I have a ratified contract. You know, you need help, call me, email me, either way. 434-825-5231.
Great.
And my email is JustineX, JustineX@gmail.com.
Logan McKeith, and you want tickets to the game tonight, if you want to. It's 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, can't go. Justine, pick a number between 1 and 9.
7.
Bart Kelly. You want tickets to the game tonight?
It's a 9,
9 o'clock.
yeah. We could do that.
What do you
9 o'clock?
If you have another chance, I sent an email out if you're interested in going for the whole company.
Oh, yeah.
Another set of tickets if you want to.
Thank you, Justine.
Yeah,
Thank you, Justine.
Yeah.
Very much.
So,
Yeah, I was here, but I'm